Okay, so you guys just have to accept that. We're gonna start on the floor, stand on up, and then we're gonna come on back down. So we got a lot of moves to cover. We'll see if we can get through them all. If not, that's okay. So what I want you to do is start in a rest assess, and I'm gonna go ahead and mute everybody. And then spotlight myself. So go ahead and take a moment to tune on in and sense what you feel. Use your body sense to tune on in. And let's go ahead and check it out. So just focus on the 4 common imbalances. We don't need to do a full-on crazy assessment here, but just tune into what you feel. And notice your shoulder girdle, because we are doing a whole body neurostrength class today. So really tune into your shoulder girdle. Notice if you feel like you are propped up on the shoulder blades or if you feel like you're a little bit more below them. I also want you to notice how your arms are resting at your sides. Do you get a sense that you are on the backs of the knuckles, or do you feel like you're a little internally rotated and maybe you're more on the pinkies rather than the back of the knuckles? So just tune into that. And then I want you to scan on down and notice your diaphragm. Notice if you feel like you got that big wailing arch today, or if you have a nice little small lumbar curve. And then tune into the pelvis and notice if you feel like you're stuck in a tuck today, maybe you're on that center bone, your sacrum, or are you on your butt cheeks? Ideally, we want to be on our butt cheeks. So notice where you are today. I'm a little off. I'm a little stuck in a tuck. And I also, just for fun, tune into your gluteal folds. You might find that as we go through this, doing some of the pelvic work, that you actually feel a little lift in that pelvis so that you can actually get a sense of the space where the thigh meets the pelvis. So just notice that. And then the backs of the thighs, ideally, those are on the floor. So just notice if you feel a little off. But I also want you, as we tune into the pelvis, when we have dysfunction and instability in the pelvis, it tends to throw off how the legs are sitting on the ground. So if you tune into your calves and your heels, ideally, we want to be on the outer 1/3 portion. But if you have weaknesses in the side of the hip, you might find that you're a little flopped out, right? So my left hip is completely flopped out, and I don't like it. But good thing we're doing side hip hero today, so that should help restore that. So just notice where that is for you. So one other thing you could do here, let's go ahead and check in with our neck turn. If you turn your head from left to right, just tune in and notice if you feel like you have more range of motion to one side versus the other. If you feel any pain, any snapping or cracking or popping, or notice if you feel like you're turning your head from your shoulders. And just make note of that. And then tune into the autopilot. Notice if you feel more heavily weighted on one side versus the other, or if a leg feels longer than another, just showing that your nervous system is a little off, but hopefully by the end of this, it'll feel more online. And then take a nice breath into the body, just sensing how the breath enters and leaves the lungs. And if you feel like you get that rib expansion, or if you feel like you're a little stuck on your inhale or stuck on the exhale. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, bend your knees, roll to your side, come on up to sitting. We're actually going to start with a hand treatment. And let me just go back to do this so I can see you guys a little bit. There we go. Okay. So just for fun, let's get the softball out, but I also want you to get your small firm ball. So I want to do a little knuckle decompression. We're going to be holding the bands a bit today. So I just want to prep our hands for all of that and also prep our shoulders before we go standing up and doing some stuff. So you did your rest assess. That's one way, obviously, to assess, but let's go ahead and give ourselves a grip assessment. I have to admit, I'm partly being super selfish about doing this because of my finger. So as you grip, if you have a cut finger that is still healing and gnarly, you might find that gripping is a little tough. So just, yeah, so that's hard for me to do. I'm like afraid to do it, you know? It's the pressure still a little bit. The other thing you could do, go ahead and assess the wrist assessment and notice if the upper back just feels like it's a little too restricted, like you feel like your skin doesn't fit you today. Raising the arms up and down, notice how the shoulders feel. Again, we're going to be working on all of that today. So notice how that feels. And then open the wrists. I don't know why that is still going on when I put everything on Do Not Disturb. I'm sorry if you can hear that dinging. And then go ahead and let it go. Just notice where that feels for you. Okay, beautiful. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the treatment. So I'm going to do one hand at a time on the floor here. So you can do it that way as well. I'm going to start with the right, where I'm just going to start with a glide. I'm not even going to do position point pressing today. I'm just going to do a glide. Gliding along the base of the palm. And just get a sense of how that feels today. Remember, we're not doing, this is not investigative, it's merely preparatory. So just tune in and notice what you feel. And then right from here, just go ahead and go into your shear, because this is more advanced, right? So you could go right into your shear, right position point number 3. So a couple things to keep in mind when you're doing this one. If you feel like there's too much wrist extension for you, just do this at a table. If this is too hard to do on the floor, of course, that as well. And you're doing tolerable pressure, you're kneading the dough, you're not trying to like crush the ball in here. You can also go up where the saddle joint is, see how that feels, or you can compress and open and close the thumb. And then wait. And switch hands, same thing. Starting with the glide. So remembering that consistent pressure is key. It's the most important thing to do here. You never want to go too deep. And if it hurts, obviously that's your body telling you something's not going right. So, and then you can go right into that shear in the thumb. I love that kneading of the dough. I think it's just a better way. And you can really just kind of use your body to lean into it, as opposed to just shearing. But using the treatment hand adds a little extra pressure and a little bit more control. And again, getting on that saddle joint is a beautiful thing. And wait. All right, now before we rinse, grab your little mini ball. I just want to do some decompression of the knuckles. So if you just stick that ball in between your 2 fingers, like you're saying, peace be with you, and then bend those knuckles, and then you just kind of thigh master that ball. I like to, if you want to do it with a soft small ball, you could do that as well. I like the big one. So you're doing the nice thing here. Sorry, just gotta close this off. There we go. And then go on over to the next one. I'm just going to multitask and make sure there isn't an emergency with my mother. So forgive me while I look at my phone. I've never done this before. Oh, they took the top layers of her skin and said there's no need to go deep because of the condition of her legs. It will be a longer healing process. Okay, good. No emergency. It looks like surgery went well. So I'm on my pinky. Welcome to my life where I am perpetually worried about my 89-year-old mother. Okay, so for the thumb, I just like to stick it in the webbing here and give it a little close. And then you can, I kind of like doing this, like where I interlace my fingers and then I just kind of pretend it's like a nutcracker, right? And it just gives a nice little decompression here in that saddle joint. And then let's switch sides. So again, this, you know, oddly, it doesn't seem like doing knuckle decompression would help with my finger, but it really does help because again, there's the tendency for stagnation as you're healing. So the more I can open up those septums to allow for fluid flow, the better we go. And again, you don't have to crush it, although I'm always tempted to. I'm like, decompress. I have to hold back my own enthusiasm. And then the pinky. And then let's go ahead on into the webbing of that thumb and give that a go as well. Okay. All right, so put that ball away. And then just for fun, let's do the glide and the shear one more time, but with both hands at the same time, and then we'll rinse it out. So interlace your fingers, put that ball in between the palms, and we go into our glide. So yeah, I tend to do it more than once. I like to glide and shear a couple more times, right? Can't hurt. So the thing that's great about melting the hands is that it's not just for the arms and the neck and the chest, right? And the upper back. Your tissue is continuous. all throughout the body in the round. So just treating your hands can actually alter your lumbar curve. And we're going to give that a little bit of a test. So I'm giving myself a little friction here. And if you want to do that indirect shear, you can just gently compress the ball and kind of do a thumb war with yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare thumb war, go. Beautiful. Now I'm going to rinse all the way up the arm because we're going to be working on the arms. So why not do that, right? So get kind of lean on a side and go all the way up from fingertip up to elbow. And again, no need to crush the tissue. It's consistent pressure that is the most important thing here. And then go ahead and switch sides when you're ready. Swing around. And then we're going to do that finger rinse because we did all that beautiful decompression. So we want to encourage those fluids to continue on through the fingers, right? Remembering that, again, and I have to be super gentle on that pointer finger, but I'm just glad that I can now get to the point where I can go over the finger, or before I could only do like half a finger. And just really getting all aspects of the finger, the sides, top, bottom, not the bottom, you know what I mean? And then it's always a good idea to spend a little extra time on that thumb, especially if you tend to have neck issues. It's a good way to alleviate that so that we have less neck trouble. That tissue does feed right into the neck fascia. And I've switched hands. Beautiful. And then the last technique is friction. So let's take a breath on in. Give me one more. Beautiful. So recheck that wrist assessment and see if you got a little bit more room in your upper back, which is great because then you're setting yourself up for success. And even raise and lower the arms, my shoulders feel a lot more free. So I'm excited about that because we are going to do some standing arm fans today. And then opening and closing the hands, noticing the wrist extension. Notice if you got a little bit more room in there. I'm still a little wonky with that, but that's okay. Reassess your grip if you need to. I feel a little braver using my pointer finger. It's still numb, so I guess that's part of what freaks me out. I don't know, just feels weird. It'll get better, I know it will. Let's reassess that rest assess just because it's always fun to see how the rest assess really does alter things. So if you just tune in quick to notice, my lumbar curve is completely altered and the backs of my thighs came down. It happens every time when I do the hand treatment, just to show you how powerful the hand treatment is. So when somebody complains about low back pain, I want you to encourage them to lay them down here in a rest assess, get them to do a mini hand treatment, lay them back down, and I think you might blow their minds. Turn your head from left to right and see if that helped your neck. It sure helped mine. Awesome. Okay, take a sip of water in and we're going to stand on up and continue on with our map. Awesome sauce. All right. All right, so yay. So let's start with a little standing assessment before we do anything, and keep your ball with you because I do want us to do a little foot treatment too to help prep us for the lower body moves as well. So we're just prepping with a little hand and foot today. Why not, right? Arms down at your sides, make sure your feet are side by side and just close your eyes and tune on in. Let's see how your footprint is today. So obviously we did do a rest assess, so that always reveals a lot, but when you're standing upright against the force of gravity, you learn all sorts of other things. So notice how you're standing. Notice if you feel evenly weighted on one foot versus the other, if you feel certain regions of the feet calling out to you. And as you start to scan up your legs, notice if you're clenching any muscles. That includes your feet and your toes. Notice if you're gripping the floor, if you're locking at your knees, you're squeezing your butt cheeks, clenching your thighs. Just notice, and if you are, just do everything you can to soften that. Just soften it and notice how you probably go into a new normal sense of stance, yeah? And then also I want you just to notice how your arms are resting at your sides. Now we just did a hand treatment, so you might find that they feel fine, but for me, I'm still a little off. I feel like my left thumb is touching my thigh, but my right one is not. So I'm a little twisted to the left. So notice if you get a similar thing. And then go back down to your footprint and let's assess our autopilot by lifting all 10 toes up off the floor. And noticing if you jump backwards or if you feel a little unstable, and then take another focused breath on in, and on that exhalation, drop those 10 toes down, noticing if you have that little bit of drift forward, just showing the autopilot's a little off today. Let's also do a hip hinge. Why not, right? So to do a hip hinge first, I want to try a spinal flex before the hip hinge. This is a little old school here, but I love it. So because I like to see if we have thoracic flexion in here. So if you just let your head get heavy and start to see if you could curl your thoracic spine, kind of like think one rib at a time is curling, right? And notice if that's easy or hard for you to do. And then you're going to get to a point where you're done with that. And then that's where you're going to start to hinge at your hips. And I want you to pause when your hands get to about where your knees are, and just lift your hands up and notice if they're even or if it feels like one arm is longer than another, and then hinge on forward and just notice the tension in the back of the legs, right? Just notice how that feels. And if you want to notice how far you go down, that's fine too. Actually, I usually cannot touch the floor, but I think because we did the hand treatment, I can. Again, something else to point out to your clients, and then bend your knees and come on back up. So let's get the ball. Let's do a mini softball foot treatment. So I'm going to start with my left foot today, and you want to go smack dab in the center of that left foot. If you want to tickle the foot to do that, or you want to put the toes down to find the center of the foot or the heel, whatever works for you. But once you're there, you're going to slowly and gently ease compression onto that left foot and then ease on back. So you're going to pitter pat back and forth between the right and the left foot to find tolerable pressure. Now, good news for me, I am on a mat, which is on a carpet, so it's easy for me to put my full body weight on it, but you might be on a hard floor. So if that's the case and it hurts you, that is your body's cue to ease off on that compression. But once you think you're in there good, splaying those toes down, find your tolerable point of pressure, and let's help out our autopilot by moving our joints around our center of gravity. So anytime we have an opportunity to help out our autopilot, we're going to take it. And this one is great because it's really just getting the nervous system to figure out, by having an object underneath your foot, where the joints are. Yeah, it's sending signaling to help you with that. So come on back up to a standing point. We're going to take a step back with that right foot, decompress the weight of the left foot. And all I want you to think about doing is pushing the foot away so that the ball travels down towards your heel, but you're going to stop before it actually gets on the heel. So you want it just before the heel. And then I want you to ease some compression onto that. Take a focused breath and then ease back your compression. Let's do that one more time. Take a little pressure here. And then you're going to even your weight between your back and front foot, and we're going to go on with the glide. So the big toe mound stays down on the floor as you rock the heel left to right. I like to say it's like your heel is like a paintbrush that's painting over the ball. And then you can travel that ball over the heel, remembering that this is just preparatory. There's no investigation here. If you were to get out the firmer balls, you would have much more investigation. And then we're going to go back in front of that heel. And once you're there, I want you to put a little bit more pressure onto the ball and tighten that wiggle. So here's your shear, right? So you're just actually using the ball as a tool to move the flesh against the plantar fascia. And then you're going to stop, you're going to pause, you're going to wait, squeeze out that sponge. And now let's rinse it out. We're going to go down the foot. So my advice, you want to start with that foot underneath the hip so you have some runway, and give a little compression into the big toe knuckle. And then you're going to go down the foot and travel with the ball and step off the ball so that you have that consistent pressure from toe to heel. So go to the next knuckle and go on down, going with the ball and stepping off it. And then we got 3 more tries, right? On my second to last knuckle and the pinky, and then do a couple more. And then give it some friction. Take a focused breath on in. Beautiful. I just jumped on. Oh, hey, Chris. Glad you made it. Let's do a mid-foot check-in here. So, especially with the hip hinge. So put those feet side by side and just close your eyes and notice the difference you feel between your right and your left foot. Obvious, right? Because you've been rubbing it with a ball, but notice the leg. Notice, I mean, I feel I just have cohesiveness in the left and a hot mess on the right. But let's go ahead and do that spine flex and hip hinge. So if you just drop the head down and start to curl forward, you might even get a sense that maybe that left side as you're curling in the thoracic spine feels a little looser, right? And then as you get to the knees, I want you to put those hands together, and my left arm is longer. As you hinge down, notice if that continues, and when you get down to the bottom, just notice the difference in the tension on the back of the left versus the right. And then bend your knees and come on back on up to standing. Let's do the other side. So Chris, if you just want to do a quick little hand treatment and a foot treatment, it's up to you if you want to do it. I did a mini hand, mini foot before we, well, we're doing the foot right now, right? So whatever works for you. So finding that dead smack dab middle spot. I'm a little more tender on this side today. It's kind of interesting. Usually my left side's more tender. So once you find that point of tolerable pressure, go ahead and help out your autopilot again, moving your joints around your center of gravity. And then come on up to a standing point. Step on back with that left leg, and we're going to decompress that right foot and move the ball so that it's just before the heel. And then you're going to give that a press. Take a focused breath. And then ease off that compression, and let's press one more time. Give that a little bit of compression. Saying hello to position point number 5. And then even your stance, and let's go ahead into our glide. So remember, this is nice and consistent. Pressure does not have to be the hardest pressure you do. It's just consistent. And then start to work your way over that heel. And then coming on back in front of that heel again. And then you're going to put a little more pressure into that spot, and you're going to tighten the wiggle to get your shear in. And then you're going to stop, you're going to pause, you're going to wait, compress, take a breath in. So let's go ahead and rinse it out, remembering to do a little position point cheat on the number 2s by compressing each knuckle as you go down the foot, traveling with the ball as you go so that you have that nice consistent pressure from toe to heel. Now a couple more in here. And I'm just going to do 2 more just for fun, because why not? So we're going to be doing some good pelvic work today, and then go ahead and do your friction. Nice and light and vibrational. Take a focused breath on in. Give me one more. And actually go over the other side. Give that a little more friction. And get rid of that ball. Last assessment for the feet, just for a hot second while we're here, just to tune in and see how that felt. Noticing if you feel more even in your stance from left to right, which is kind of cool. And if you want to go ahead and check out that hip hinge again, we're going to do this one more time at the end. But yeah, I've now got like my fingers can touch the floor. So if you still find that you have some unevenness in the arms from left to right, you got some sacrum issues going on, but hopefully we can alleviate that. So we'll be able to test that again at the end of this sequence. But I want you to stay with your feet side by side, because now we're going to do a releve right where you are. So for those of you who have never done a releve before, you might be tempted just to come up on your toes, right? So when we do it that way, it's easy to kind of shift our masses forward to do that. But what are you achieving, right? The idea is we want to be able to have cohesiveness and get our joints to move without compensating and swinging our center of gravity forward. Can you keep your center of gravity where it's supposed to be? So I want you to think about the tailbone being floating toward the ceiling slightly. Don't go crazy with the tilt. It's just a slight float, yeah? And I want you to also think about your feet going outward, out. You want to think about pushing a bit, right? So you feel like you're more on the outside of the foot. And then from here, can you come all the way up? So it's almost like you're doing, as you rise on up, you're going from pinky to big toe, like you're doing a reverse toe rinse. And you're going to pause at the top. You don't have to go all the way up on your tippy toes. You're just noticing. And then slowly come on down. I'm going to give you a side view so you can see. So this is a fun one. It's tricky. And if you're not sure if you could do this right, go on over to the wall and put 2 fingers and notice if you're shifting in it, or can you come straight on up, pausing at the top and then coming on down. We got 2 more of these for reintegration. So again, let's see, can we get our joints to cooperate here? Keeping that nice little float of the tailbone without pitching forward. Can you come straight on up, pausing at the top and then coming on down? And last one, again, you want to think you're going out to come up, coming out, reverse toe rinse as you come on up to the top. Pause at the top here. And now we're going to go for the pattern where you're going to come on down, tap it and come on up without the pause, tap it, come on up for 2, tap it, come on up for 3, last one, tap it, come on up for 4, hold it, and then come on down. So that's also kind of an assessment. We're going to come back to this later because if you've got weakness in the side of the hips, that's a tough one to do. So notice if you feel like that really was local in the calves, or if you felt like that started to creep on up the legs a little bit. It's easier to test that when you're doing the single releve, but it's fun to test anyway. Okay, so now we're going to move on to side hip hero, and I'm going to move my camera a little closer because you'll be happy I did. So I'm going to use my performance roller for this one. Okay, so I'm going to start with my left hip, but that's actually not the hip we're going to be working. You'll see. So here's the deal. To get this in the right spot, I want you to make sure you're going to be putting it, if you can see your hip bone, you want to be able to put it, here's my hip bone here and my greater trochanter, right? So I'm going to kind of stick it in between there. It's like a nice little divot in your hip. So once you got that, you're going to put the hip up against the roller. So by the way, this used to be called hip up against the roller, up against the wall, right? Okay, your inside leg, put that foot clear up against the wall. We're still in the setup, by the way, but the setup is key. Couple things that are very important. You want to make sure that your hips are square, your torso is square. I want you to now look down at your feet, and you might find that your outside foot is out pretty far. I need you to bring it in much farther than you think. So it's got to be directly underneath your hip. So you want to be able to look down. It's going to feel like you're going to topple over. That's when you know you're in the right spot. Okay. So once that's directly underneath you. Now, a couple things. I want you to press. I start to get a little out of breath when I do this, by the way. I want you to think about pressing your left foot into the wall. And as you do that, you might get a good sense of the hip firing on the right. That's what we want. So if you're still feeling a little wonky, just humor me and bring that leg in just a tiny bit more, just in case you're a little nervous, right? And then do it again. You'll feel that firing. Okay. Important keys here. Do not lock out the standing leg. I want you to find that lift in the torso. Think about standing tall in the leg. Yeah. You want to focus. Big toe mound, outside the foot, center of the heel. Okay. So from here, all I want you to do now is just decompress your inside leg, that left leg. Okay. And I want you to find yourself standing up nice and tall. And once you're here, you might already be like, I'm firing, Amanda. Beautiful. Make sure you're square. Make sure the pelvis is square. And now all I want you to do is I want you to bend your right leg and stand on up. And as you do it, I want you to think, without lifting with keeping the hips square, let's bend the knees again. I want you to think almost like it's more of an idea than a thing that you're trying to push the roller up against the wall with that standing leg. Let's do this 2 more times. You're going to bend that knee. I want you to think you're trying to push a little bit. Last one, you're going to come on down and then you're going to push. Think about pushing without altering the squareness of the pelvis. Beautiful. Okay, now again, find the length in the leg that's standing. You're going to have your hands on your hips. Now we're going to go into that lazy stance. I want you to think about the left hip is going to drop down a little bit. Yeah, it's going to get a little lazy. And then from here, you're going to think about pushing that hip against the roller, against the wall as you bring that hip back to square. We got 3 more. You're going to drop that hip. And you're going to push to bring that pelvis back up to square. 2 more. Big toe mound, outside the foot, center of the heel. Don't lose it. Keep the float of the tail. Push as you come on up. If you think about pushing into those 3 points of the foot, we got 1 more. Here we go. You're going to let that left hip go lazy, and then you're going to push it back up to square. If you are fried and done, you can quit right here if you want to. The rest of us, we're going to continue. You're going to bring the left knee up, and you're going to swing it back, making sure you're standing tall on the standing leg. You're going to bring it on up, and you're going to bring it on back without altering anything, staying stable. 2 more times. Forward and back. Last one, we're going to bring the leg forward. We're going to bring it back, but then I want you to bring it up. This is the add-on challenge. Again, you can quit if you're done. Bring the knee on up. I want you to cross your arms over your chest. You are pushing the roller against the wall, and you're going to rotate your torso without turning your hips inside toward the wall, back to center. You're going to rotate that torso outward. Don't twist the pelvis. 1 more time, toward the wall, and then away from the wall. Back to the center, give it another push, and let it go. If you did that one right, you are on fire right here. And that's exactly what we want. How'd that go for you guys so far? Good? Thumbs up? Shall we do the other side? Of course. Yay. All right, just gonna make a micro adjustment. One day I'll have like a nice big studio, but for now I have a 2nd bedroom, so I'm not complaining. Okay, so same thing. You're really gonna know where to put the roller now. It's that spot that's on fire on your left hip. That's where it's gonna go. And you're gonna put that clear up against the wall. Okay, inside leg goes up against the wall. I'm gonna move in a little bit. All right, look down. Bring that outside leg in. It seems like it shouldn't go in that far, but it must. It has to go. Don't think of it being in line with your hip bone outside. I want you to think of it being in line with the joint, which is farther in the center, and that's where the foot has to go. Okay, pelvis stays square, torso stays square, right? I want you to press that up. I'm sorry, let that tailbone go light. Think about being tall on the leg. Big toe mound, outside the foot, center of the heel. I want you to push that inside foot against the wall, and you get that engagement. That's the intention that we want. That's where we want to be. So once you think you're there, remember, we really want to think you're standing tall in that standing leg. Find your footprint. Make sure you're not locking out that knee, and you're going to just let go of the inside leg. It just decompresses, right? Okay, so from here, now you're going to bend that left knee just to come down a little bit. And again, without altering the hip position, keeping it square, you want to think you're pushing the roller against the wall as you come on up to standing. 3 more. Come on down. Don't lose that tailbone float. You're going to push and come on back up. Think about pushing through the big toe mound, outside the foot, center of the heel. 2 more. And come on down. Push. Don't hike that hip. Not yet. Last one, and come on down. This is just kind of the prep, right? You're not thinking about pushing and coming on back up. Beautiful. Okay, now we're going to do the lazy hip. So you've still got that right knee on up, finding yourself tall in that left leg. We're now going to let the right hip dip down into a lazy stance. And then you're going to push against that roller as you come back up to square. Keeping the big toe mound, outside the foot, center of the heel. Yep, standing tall on that leg. We're going to let that left hip or right hip drop again. Find your core. Come back up to square. 2 more. Here we go. I'm going to drop that left hip, right hip down. Sorry. And then push as you come on back up. Don't lose your footprint. Last one. We're going to come on down. My hip is really starting to burn. Hopefully yours is too. You're going to push and you're going to come on back up. Again, if you are completely fried, you can quit here. Otherwise, you're going to bring that right knee on up, making sure you are standing tall. Don't lose the float. And then you're going to swing that leg on back. You're going to bring it on up. And we're gonna swing it on back. Nothing moves, just the leg. But focus on what's staying stable, not so much what's moving. 2 more. Here we go. Up and back, keeping the pressure of the hip up against the roller, up against the wall. Up and back. Now you're going to bring the knee on up. We're going to move on with the add-on challenge. You can cross your arms over your chest, making sure you are standing tall in that left leg, pushing the roller up against the wall. You are going to rotate toward the wall without moving your hips. Back to center. Keeping that pressure of the roller up against the wall, rotate toward the outward and back. Last time, we're going to come in toward the wall, back to center, rotating outward. Don't let the hip come with you. And back to center. Give it another little press. Think press, 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 lift, 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 and let it go. Beautiful. I hope you love that as much as I did. Okay, moving on. We're not done with the lower body. We got one more thing to do. I want you to grab your big roller and have it down on the floor. We're going to move on to plie squat. So for those of you who have not done these moves before, they might be kicking your butt. I mean, they still kick mine. So that's okay. But just if it's too much and you're not sure what we're doing, just watch for now and check it out later. Okay, so you have the roller out in front of you so that you can measure your leg stand. But for some of you, it may not work. If your legs are too long or not too long, if they're super long or they're shorter, this may not work. So like for Carrie, this measurement doesn't work for her. Her legs are too splayed out. So you figure it out. But the idea is that you don't want to be super spread out and you don't want to be too close in. And then I'm going to remove the roller so you can see where I am. So I have a slight turnout, right? And then once you're here, I want you to think again, big toe, the big toe. You are on big toe mound, outside the foot, center of the heel, tailbone is lifting, and then 1, 2, 3, I want you to come down to a plie. So once you're here, now we're gonna fix the setup a little bit more. We're not even done setting up. Look over your knee, and I want you to notice I have a little bit of my toe poking out. You wanna have your foot disappear underneath your knee. So you may have to make a micro adjustment. Look over on the other side as well and make sure you got that too. Now we're going to actually manipulate our tissue. So you're going to go on over to one of your thighs and start twisting the flesh. Yep, just twist, twist, twist. Go on down and come on up. And then you can go on over to the other leg and same thing, start down at the knee and rotate it outward, right? Because that's the idea. We want to be able to get the spinning outwardness of that. And then take the heels of your hands and dig them in your hips. You just want to think about moving that away. This way we get a little bit more. It's like doing a little shearing here so that we could get a little bit more mobility in the hip joints. Okay, now come down a little bit more. Really think tailbone is floating. And what I want you to think about is take your fingertips for a second, put them behind your knees, and just without making it a big deal, just almost think about the knees pushing into the hands, right? Big toe mound, outside the foot, center of the heel. This is the intention. Now from here, you're going to start to come on up. And I want you to think you've got a ball in between your legs. You're trying to squeeze it as you come up, but don't lose the footprint. You're coming up nice and slow. And then as we come down, you're going to come on down without pitching forward. You want to think tailbone is floating. You're up nice and tall. And I want you to think you're pushing the feet away. Push, 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 push. And the knees are trying to go a little bit behind you. Not too crazy, just ever so slightly and subtly. Pausing. Let's do it again. You're going to come on up thinking about squeezing that ball in between your thighs. Not losing your footprint. Keep the big toe mound outside the foot, center of the heel. And then we're going to go down. If you're out of breath like me, that's your rooted core. That is really getting some good heat in here. Push, push, push. Think out, out, out. Yeah. Tailbone is floating. Tailbone is floating. And then we're going to do it again. Here we go. Number 3. Coming on up. Yeah. And then we're going to go back out. Push, push out. Think about the knees going behind you if you want to. Some of you might find that you're cramping a little bit. I am a little bit because I did a workout this morning. So last one, we're going to come on up. We're still in reintegration here. Coming on up, feeling those inner thighs. And then we're going to go out. Think out, 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 out. Knees behind you. Out, out, out. Push, push. Tailbone still floats. You are nice up and nice and tall. Okay. So then once we're here, now I want you to come down a little bit lower. And then we're going to pulse. 1, 2, 3. and 4. And I want you to come down, and we're going to go for the pattern. Here we go. We're going to come up, and we're going to go down for 1. Up, come down for 2. Up, come down for 3. Last one. Up, come down for 4. I did the pulsing too soon. We're going to do it again. Here we go. 4, 3, 2, 1. But we're not done yet, because I'm going to have you come all the way down and come halfway up and go all the way down and come all the way up and go halfway down, all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down, and then pulse it again for 4, 3, 2, 1, and let it go. Woo. Hope that was fun for you. That was fun for me. So now that your legs are fried, and again, I did a lower body workout today, let's do a little upper body. Go ahead and grab that band. Actually, get a sip of water. Let's just get a sip of water. It's a good thing you guys melted your feet before we did this. Okay, so now we're going to do standing arm fans. This is the last move we're doing standing, so it's all good. Okay, so to set yourself up for success, you want to make sure you get your band, and you're going to place it actually underneath your pubic bone, so more across the tops of the thighs here, the upper thighs. And you're going to wrap it behind you under your butt cheeks, so that when you come on up, the band is under your booty. But what I recommend is my greater trochanters here, I put the band just above it, because I'm a scrawny chicken, and when things touch my bones, it hurts. So once you get it across there, then you're going to crisscross it again in the front. So your left hand holds the right band, and your right hand holds the left band. You got to crisscross applesauce, okay? So a couple of things I want to point out before we get going. You want to make sure that the wrists stay nice and strong and in alignment, and you're working on the shoulders, okay? So let's see how we do here. So first thing I want you to do is just punch the arms straight out in front of you. And then I'm going to have you bring the elbows behind you. And you'll notice I'm still standing up nice and tall like before, tailbone floating. I'm going to punch those arms forward, and I'm going to bring them back. Let's do that one more time. We're just kind of setting up our shoulder joint for this series of bits, this little move that we're going to be doing, which has some multiple parts to it. So one more time, we're going to punch it forward. And then as you start to come back, you're going to pause before your elbows come to your torso. So I have my forearms bent. It's like a tray holder, right? Like I could put a tray of drinks on my forearms and nothing would fall. You also have your wrists nice and strong and in alignment. Tailbone is floating. You're not, pitching forward or backward. Your stance is nice and strong. Soften your knees. Okay. Is Amanda going to stop talking? Are we going to move? Are you already starting to fatigue? Maybe you are. I don't know. So let's do this. I want you just to think about your elbows floating up toward the ceiling. So you're not going to twist your wrists. It's only coming from your shoulders, and then elbows come back in toward the center. Let's do that 3 more times. I'm going to float the elbows on up, and then you're going to bring them on back. X marks the spot. 2 more. Float them on up, and then you're going to bring them on in. Let those elbows come in. Last one. Again, we're not bringing the elbows behind us. My elbows are still in front of my torso. Beautiful. From here, now we're going to go into external rotation right from here, like you're at the Price is Right lady saying, look at all these wonderful prizes, and pause. And then we're going to come back to parallel, and we're going to pause. This is reintegration, folks. Let's do it again. We're going to come on out, external rotation, and pause. Back to parallel and pause. If you're feeling this 100% in your neck, I want you to drop the band and just watch, or do it without the band. 2 more times. External rotation and pause. Back to parallel and pause. Last one. Here we go for reintegration. Open it up and pause. Back to neutral and pause. Now we're going to go for the pattern without the pause, where we open and close for 1, open and close for 2, open and close for 3. Last one, open and close for 4. Add-on challenge. You're going to open it up, and you're going to push out and come on back for 1. You're going to push out and come on back for 2. 2 more. Out, come on back for 3. Last one. Out, come on back to 4, back to neutral. Let go of the band, but I want you to go into internal, external rotation while you're standing. Now we're going to couple it with internal rotation. 2 more. I'm going to open it and close it. Last one, you're going to open it and close it. Beautiful. So if you did that one right, you got a lot of activity, a lot of burning, a lot of stuff going on here in the shoulder. If you felt it going up into your neck, you were out of the pathway. So maybe the standing move is not for you right now. You can try some of the sideline moves. We are going to do one sideline move. But before we get back down onto the ground, let's do one last assessment. So you're going to put those feet side by side. And two things I want to do. Reassess your releve. So let's see how we did. If you push those feet outward, think tailbone floating, you see if you can come on up. And if you're like, oh, piece of cake, notice, try it one more time. Just notice if you feel like it's a little bit easier to do, showing that you got some good reintegration in the hip joint, which is great. Awesome. The other thing is notice your foot stance, notice, close your eyes, and just notice now how your arms are resting at your sides. Mine are even now. It's crazy, right? I feel my footprint is more even. I feel more relaxed in my stance. Let's go ahead and reassess that hip hinge one last time, starting with the thoracic rib curl. Noticing if now it feels a little bit easier to curl in your thoracic spine, or maybe you feel a little sore after doing that last move. Notice that too. Come as you get down to the knees, notice if the hands are still side by side or if that's still a little off, and then come all the way down. And notice if now you have that more even stance, the legs feel more even in their resistance on from left to right, that tension. Bend the knees, roll on back up to standing. Well done. Let's come on down for another rest assess to see what all that did to your rest assess. Let me move this down one more time. That was fun. That was a fun little series we did there. All right, so we did some good hip work. We did some good shoulder girdle work. Let's see how we feel here. So tune into your shoulder girdle. Notice if now you feel more like you're on the backs of the knuckles. We have another move to do for the upper body, but just notice that. Notice if now you feel more weighted underneath the shoulder blades. You feel like you have a nice little lumbar pop. Notice how your pelvis is now positioned if the thighs feel like they're a little bit more down to the ground. But also notice how your heels and your calves are on the floor. Do you feel like you're more on the outer 1/3 portion of the heel? I know I do. I feel much more even here, which is kind of cool. Turn your head from left to right. See if that last move actually kind of did your neck in a bit. And hopefully not, but if it did, we're going to do more work to help that. And then notice your autopilot. Maybe even take a breath on in. And notice that that got some relief as well. And then bend your knees, roll to your side, come on up to sitting. Let's do a quick little upper back compression. I know we start with the hand treatment, but we're gonna just get more hydration in here. Sometimes it's kind of cool. You find that you have even better results doing compression after you do neuro strength. I don't know. Sometimes that's the way it is. So it doesn't matter to me where you have the roller right now. Just put your hands behind your head, relax your neck completely, bring those elbows on in. You're going to lift your pelvis up and bring those butt cheeks towards the heels so that the roller's at the top of the upper back, and we're going to start our glide. We're just going to be here. I'm not going to do a full one today. We're just going to do a little upper back just to get some hydration in here if we had more time, which like 90 minutes isn't enough. I mean, come on, right? I would do the full upper body compression, but there are other moves I want to do. So just noticing how you feel here, remembering to keep the head nice and relaxed in the hands, and the pelvis is super low to the ground. Noticing if you have any tension in here in the upper back, you want to edge up next to a barrier. Don't go on top of it. We never want to inflict pain. Get smaller and smaller. Let's tuck our pelvis midair and then put it back down onto the ground and then curl forward in the ribs. Yep. And then we're going to go ahead and do our shear by doing small little side bends, twisting the flesh. And wait. Adjust your feet if you need to. Let's just hit one more spot. You're going to lift that pelvis on up, push through the feet to go down a little farther, and go ahead into your glide here. Finding a spot, if you have one, edge up next to it, getting smaller and smaller, tucking that pelvis midair, placing it back down, curling forward in the ribs, and going into your shear, twisting the flesh. And wait. Let's go ahead and just rinse it a couple times here, a few times. Bring the heel or butt cheeks to the heels. Take a focused breath on in. On that exhalation, you're going to push through the feet, steamroll down the spine, curling in the ribs as you go, not yanking the neck. Let the pelvis just graze the floor here. And you want to stop when the roller gets just above those floating ribs. Let's redo it again. Pelvis to the heels. Take a breath on in. Use your sound. Shh. Curl, curl, curl. Think about like you're reaching the crown of your head away. And then yep, one more. Breath on in. So you get down to about, I don't know, your 9th rib. There we go. Beautiful. Sit on up and sit tall on top of the roller. We're going to move on to seated compression. So we're getting lots of juiciness in here. We drove some fluid down to the pelvis. Now we're going to add on to it. So let's just go right into deep hip. So actually, before we do that, put your fingertips on the floor in front of the roller, and I just want you to glide over your sit bones a couple times. So this is always a good way to start. It's kind of preparatory, but it's also a chance to sort of notice if you still have any instability going on. Notice if you have one sit bone going around the roller before the other one, just showing that you're still a little off, right? Not a crisis, just notice. And then once you do it again, I want you to bring the sit bones on the foot side of the body, and you're going to bring the knees and the feet together. And I want you to go ahead and tip over onto the right. We're going to get onto that right deep hip. So in here, you're working on the deep 6 hip lateral rotators. So you probably heard of the piriformis, but Mr. Piriformis has 5 other friends that are crammed into a tiny little 1-room apartment, and they're called your deep hip, right? So we want to get some nice hydration in there. These guys are responsible for helping with the stabilization of the bone into the joint, and also assist with laterally rotating the leg. So you might have a lot of gunk in here. I know I do. So try to get on the least offensive part, and then we're going to shear it by clamming the knee or extending that leg on out and rocking over the hip. So one thing we don't do when we're up here is we do not do cross friction, because you've got your sciatic nerve kind of exposed. So you want to be careful of that. So for some of you, this even might feel uncomfortable. So if that's the case, don't do it. Just do the indirect shear. Bring that right foot to meet the left, and think about like you're sliding off the roller, but you're going to end up on your forearm. And now we're on that side hip. So now we're on the side of the right hip. I'm just going to adjust myself a little bit. So with this one, we can do cross friction, and we will, but there's a lot of surface area for you to explore here. So go ahead and do that. And by the way, if your neck is bothering you, turn your gaze toward the floor just to relax that neck. So you could get more toward the sacrum on this one, or you can think about getting more toward the front of the hip. It's a great way to really glide around here. And then go ahead to shear it. All you need to do is clam the knee or extend that leg on out and roll over the hip. And with this one, you can roll right onto your tensor fascia lata. That's that muscle right on the front of the hip. Or you can now do that cross friction where you're just dragging the hip front and back, dragging that flesh, pinning and moving. And wait. And then we're going to sit up tall and go on over to the other side. Same thing, but different. So you want to start by being up tall. Remember, sit bones are on the heel foot side of the roller. And you're going to put your one hand, I put my right hand on my knees, and I'm going to tip on over to the left. And that way you could be up tall. So think pressure, the hip is on top of the roller. So if you're putting too much pressure onto your shoulder, figure out how to reconvene yourself there. Or if you're like, my arms aren't long enough, you could always put another roller underneath your hand or a half roller. That works too. So just notice, like, does one hip feel more restricted than the other, a little more sensitive? Figure out where you need to shear. I got all sorts of gunk going on in my booty today, and go ahead and do it by clamming. And then extending that leg on out and rocking over the hip. Lumpy, lumpy, lumpy. And then wait. Beautiful. Left foot meets the right foot. And now we're going to slide on down till we end up on our forearm. And now you are on the side hip here. So remember, you got more surface area to explore here. And since we did side hip hero, you might find that this feels a little sore, or maybe this just feels amazing to do right now. But so we're kind of giving a little relief to our side hip hero, but we're also preparing ourselves for the next move we're going to do, which is clams. Beautiful. All right, so to share it, remember we can clam the knee or extend that leg on out and rock over the hip, or get our cross friction on. It's like being a mermaid, right? And wait. Awesome. Slide on off, grab your band, and you're going to put it onto your mat. And I'm going to start by lying on my left side. I need a sip of water. So you're going to lay it out. Use your logo as a guide. That's what I always do. You're going to put your booty on that logo. And then we're going to come on down onto our left side. And as you come on down, I want you to think about threading the needle of your left arm so that you end up not on your shoulder itself, but more like on the shoulder blade. So once you're here, your knees are bent right now. It's kind of a mess. So let's get cleaned up a bit. First thing I want you to do is use your top foot to kind of push your booty back. So once you do, then you're more on the thigh of the bottom leg rather than on the hip joint. So kick that hip joint behind you. So we're going to start with clams. And what I want you to do is have your heels in line with your sit bones. But here's the thing. If you find that in this position, you're only your pinky is touching the floor, I want you to make a micro adjustment. But try not to straighten the legs out too much. And I don't want you to have too much hip flexion or too much hip extension. So it's kind of a delicate balance. It's through time and practice, you'll figure out your ideal position for this one. But once you think you got it, you're going to put your hands, right hand on top of the right hip. And we're going to do our tilt, stack, and roll. So if I ask you to tilt your pelvis, you want to think about the tailbone floating behind you. Just for fun, let's give it a tuck. Okay, so one more time. We're going to slowly go into a tilt, making sure you don't let the ribs come with you. It's only coming from the pelvis. Once you've got that tilt, then you're literally going to push your top hip away from you so it stacks on top of the bottom one. This is the stack. And then the roll, the whole torso rolls forward so that the top knee glides over the bottom knee. So once you're there, I want you to take that top hand off your hip and put it down onto the mat, and you're going to give it a gentle press. And that's going to bring your ribs back a little bit, but also I want you to think, I want you to use this to make the bottom leg light. You'll know what I mean in a minute. Okay, now we're going to go. Top heel squeezes into the bottom heel. And I want you to think, find your core, take a breath in, find your core. You're going to reach your top knee toward me as you squeeze that top heel, and you're going to go into a clam. And once you're there, and you won't go very far, I want you to pause. So some of you may have lost your tilt, stack, and roll. So let's play with this one a little bit. I want you actually to go into a micro tuck. Go into a micro tuck. And I want you to slightly tilt. Just start to send your tilt away. And once you're there, just make sure you still have that stack. And you are reaching the knee toward me. Make sure you're pressing a little bit into the floor to lighten the load of the bottom leg. And you want to think about softening the front of the hip. A lot to think about. And then let's try it 3 more times. You're going to bring that knee on down, and you're not going to release it. You're going to keep it active as you then squeeze that top heel into the bottom heel. You're going to reach that knee toward me. You're going to come on up into your clam, making sure that you're still reaching that knee. Bottom leg is light. Squeeze the top heel into the bottom heel. There it is. 3 more, 2 more. Bring the knee on down. You're going to reach. You're going to clam. Soften the front of that hip. Squeezing the top heel into the bottom heel. Bottom leg is light. Yep, last one for the reintegration. Bring the knee on down. Tap it. Reach that knee toward the camera. As you clam it on up, you really want to think the front of the hip is soft. The front of the hip, the front of the thigh is soft. Bottom leg is light. You're gonna squeeze that top heel into the bottom heel. Now we're gonna go for the pattern. You're gonna tap and lift for 1, tap and lift for 2, tap and lift for 3, tap and lift for 4, hold it. Can you bring that knee up a little bit more? Clam that top or squeeze that top heel into the bottom heel, soften the front of that hip and let it go. That's a tough one. So if you did that one right, you're gonna find that you get a lot of activity right into not just the butt cheek itself, but you're gonna feel it almost underneath that butt cheek. So that's a good fun one to do. Okay, so I want you to make sure your band is secure under your hip. So give it a little tug, make sure it's secure, and make sure that band is straight out in front of you. And I want you to lift your arms straight up into the air. So we're gonna do something called sideline backhands. So this is gonna help with rear delts, right? Okay. So you notice if your arm is way up here, it's like your shoulders up in your ear. So we're going to angle that arm down, 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 so that the hand is over the hip. So now your shoulder is definitely away from your ear. This angle is everything for this move. So right from here, I'm going to have you start to think like you're a falling tree, timber, and your arm is going to go down wherever the hand lands on the band. That's where you're going to get it. So once you've got it without reaching, right? We're not reaching forward in the torso. You just let the arm fall down. You're going to gather that band up into your hand. So once you're there, you're going to gather it into your hand like a little handle. And I want you to think you're going to pull it on up, like you're trying to pull the band out from underneath you. Okay, so some of you may have already let the arm drift in front of you like this. So again, down, 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 down. Right? So a couple of key things here. You want to make sure that you have a nice, strong line of the arm, right? So no break in the wrist. Your knuckles are like punching out away from you. Your forearm is parallel to the ceiling. You're at this nice little angle. So let's prep for this. Let's go ahead and bend the elbows so that the arm comes behind us. And that fist is going to graze over the hip. And then you're going to punch that arm forward. And then you're going to do that again. You're going to bring the arm back and you're going to bring it on forward. Last time, you're going to graze the arm back and then you're going to punch it on forward, right? Okay, so now we're ready for the move. Take a breath on in, and on your exhalation, I want you to think you're just doing a slight reach of the knuckles forward, and like you're lifting a bucket of hot lava, you're going to bring that band on up. Think about the pinky leading the motion, but don't twist the arm, pausing. And then let the band pull you back to neutral. Make sure you still have that nice angle of the arm. We got 3 more here. Breath on in, on the exhalation, think about reaching the knuckles as you then lift. You're not locking out the elbow, but the elbow is also not bent. You're going to pause at the top. Think about the pinky is leading the motion here. Let the band pull you on back. 2 more. Breath on in, exhale. Think about reaching the knuckles forward as you then let the pinky have more of an intention of lifting that band. And then come on down. Last one. You're going to reach and you're going to lift. You're going to pause at the top. Let the band pull you on back to neutral. Now we're going to go for the pattern. We're going to reach. We're going to lift and down for 1. Think about reaching and lifting and down for 2. Reaching and lifting down for 3. Last one, reaching and lifting down for 4. Hold it. Let go of the band. And we're going to do it for reals without the band. Bring it on up all the way and bring it all the way down into flat adduction, right? So we've got little extension, abduction, and then flexion, adduction. One more time. Bring it on up and bring it on down and let it go. Tough one. Let's try the other side. So again, that one you're going to feel it in the shoulder, but you might feel that you've got it more on the back of the arm, which is ideally where we want that. And if you don't feel that, that's okay. We'll try it. We'll try it a different way another time. There are other ways to get into that pathway. So we like to do rear delt because we have too much flexion and internal rotation in our arms. So the moves that Sue has created, they are intended to help reestablish better shoulder girdle stability and shoulder joint centralization. So we're going to thread the needle. And we're going to kick our booty back. We're going to get ourselves set up for clams. So again, you want to make sure when you're here, figure out where your legs need to be. So this is actually my good side, which is ironic because it's where my labral tear is, but this one is more integrated than the other one. So I feel pretty good where I am. You're going to put that hand on the hip. We're going to go into our tilt, stack, and roll. So if you want to start with a tuck, you can. that helps you. And then go into your tilt. You're going to stack the top hip on top of the bottom hip. And then you're going to roll the whole body forward so that the top knee goes over the bottom knee. Top hand now goes down onto the floor. You're going to give it a gentle press to send those ribs back, but also use it to lighten the load of that bottom leg. Take a breath on in. I want you to find your core, squeeze the top heel into the bottom heel as you reach that top knee toward the camera, and you're going to clam on up. And once you're up at the top, I want you to pause and make sure you still have the stack of the pelvis. You're still reaching the knee toward me, and you have your tilt. Now, if you want to do a micro tuck, because if it feels like your low back is jamming, you're over tilting, and then slowly go into that tilt. Aha. Squeeze the top heel into the bottom heel. There it is. Make sure that bottom leg is light. Let's go on down. That was one. There we go. You're going to reach and you're going to lift. Really think about, once you're up at the top, you want to think about the front of that hip being soft. So TFL is soft, right? As soft as you can make it. You're squeezing the top heel into the bottom heel. Bottom leg is light. You're reaching the knee toward the camera. Two more. Here we go. You're going to come down. You're going to tap it. Reach and lift. So you're not falling back. Make sure you're still forward. You're going to squeeze that top heel into the bottom heel, softening the front of the hip, lightening the bottom leg, keeping the ribs back. Last one. Here we go. We're going to tap. You're going to reach. And you're going to lift. Wait, I think I have one more, right? Did I say one more? Let's do one more just for fun because I lost count. We're going to come down, tap it, reach it, and lift it, squeezing that top heel into the bottom heel. You might be shaking. I'm shaking. All right, now we go for the pattern. You're going to tap and lift for 1, tap and lift for 2, tap and lift for 3, tap and lift for 4. Can you reach it up a little bit more? A little bit more. And let it go. It's a tough one, but I love it. Okay, beautiful. Let's move on. Let's take that top arm, bring it up into the air, and then you're going to angle it down so that you have that awesome angle with the hand over the hip. That's the most important thing. You really do notice. If you're not sure, you can put your other hand right on your shoulder, and as you angle it away, you actually feel it like melting away from your ear, which is what you want. And then right from here, without the torso moving, just the arm is going to go down. And wherever it touches the band, that's where you're going to grab it. And this way we ensure that we have it even from left to right. Now, obviously, if you have a shoulder pathology, you know what you can and can't do. So if that's not possible for you, that's okay. So once you're there, you're going to pull that band on up. And again, you want to make sure you're set up. So the angle of the arm, most important thing. If you want to put your opposite hand here to avoid any temptation of raising that arm on up, you can. Keep yourself honest, right? So we're at the parallel point, wrist is strong, no break in the wrist, right? And then we're going to bend that elbow behind us to set ourselves up here, and you're going to punch it on forward. Just going to graze that fist over the hip, and we're going to punch it on forward. Let's do that one more time to set ourselves up for success. And punch that arm forward. Okay, beautiful. So take a breath on in, and on the exhalation, I want you to think you're giving a slight reach with the knuckles, and then as if the pinky is leading the motion without actually doing that, you're going to come on up and you're going to pause. Major shaky shake here. Let the band pull you back to neutral and wait. 3 more. You're going to reach and you're going to lift. You're going to pause and let that band pull you back. And wait. Reach and lift. And pause. Let the band pull you back. And you're going to wait. Last one. You're going to reach and lift. Think about the pinky leading the motion. You're going to pause at the top. The wrist is nice and strong. There's no break. Let the band pull you back to neutral. Now we're going to go for the pattern. You're going to reach and lift for 1. Reach and lift for 2. Reach and lift for 3. Last one, reach and lift for 4. Come on back to neutral. Let go of the band. Now you're going to come all the way up and go all the way down to the mat. Or you can put your other hand there and clap the hand. Bring it on up. Keep that angle though. 2 more. Now bring it on up. Last one. Bring it on up and let it go. And right from where we are, Let's start to shear the base of the skull, right where we are. Think about circles. I like to think about dragging the flesh. And wait. And then let's clam that top leg on up, but not like we just did. Let's just get into our half back position and do a little shear here. Feels good to do. It's like a cool down after all that. And then we wait. And go on over to the other side. I'm going to flip on over. You can get the band out from underneath you if you want. So if you found that a lot of this stuff went into your neck, this is going to feel good to get a little hydration here into the neck. And remembering what your neck turn felt like before all of this. Making sure that roller's not in the neck. My shoulder tends to keep the roller away from my neck, which is nice. And wait. And then let's go ahead and clamp that top knee so we can get in that half back position. And wait. And then let's go ahead all the way onto the back. And let's do the base of the skull here. Getting our little jazz head in here. Little infinity symbols that you're tracing on the ceiling with your nose. Whatever works for you, just dragging that flesh on the base of the skull to create hydration. The weight of the head is enough. And wait. And then go ahead and move that roller up a little bit higher, present the face up toward the ceiling, put a little pressure of the head into the roller, take a focused breath on in. And on the exhalation, I want you to think about reaching the crown of your head away from you to notice how your face nods just a little bit down. Pause here, take a breath into the back of the neck. And on the exhalation, you're going to float that face back up to the ceiling. Take a breath into the front of that throat. Exhale, reach the crown of the head away from you. Pause, take a breath into the back of that neck. Exhale, float the face on up. Take a breath into the front of that throat. Last time, we're going to reach the crown of the head away. Take a breath into the back of that neck. And exhale, float the face on up. Take a breath on into the front of that throat. Exhale, lift the head on up, release the roller, put the head on the ground. You might notice how nice and big your neck curve feels. And turn your head from left to right. You can keep the knees up because we're going to get this roller underneath the pelvis for one last bit here. So notice how your neck turn feels, okay? So then let's go ahead and put the roller underneath the pelvis, making sure that you are not in your low back and you're not in your butt cheeks. You are somewhere in between on the back of the pelvis, PSIS, ideally on the head side of the roller. Practice your tuck and tilt right here. Noticing how you tuck your pelvis. When you do, you get a nice little line of pull in the front of those thighs. And when you untuck the pelvis, let the pelvis go back exactly where it started, being heavy on top of the roller. So heavy that if I asked you, you could start to make your feet light. You're going to feel your abdomen engage and the pelvis is going to sink into the roller. That's the ideal position for to heal, by the way. Let's bring the knees all the way into the chest. And then we're going to send the knees part way away so that we can get into our SI joint shear. So you're going to tip the knees left to right a couple of times, finding just the SI joints on either side. So if you want to think about your 11 o'clock or your 1 o'clock, I'm going to start at 1 o'clock and I'm going to do some small little circles, both my knees. And then I'm just going to let that other knee go, the inner or outer knee go, just the right knee doing those circles or marching the knees. Now we've done our deep hip and side hip. And we also did upper back compression. Go ahead, stop and pause and wait. So we've gotten a fluid exchange into the pelvis, but I just want to add this little bit with the SI joint to be super specific. So now I'm over at 11 o'clock, working on my left SI joint. You want to make sure you don't go onto that left butt cheek. Otherwise you miss the opportunity to really help out this joint. So you do both knees, or you just do the left knee, or march those knees forward and back. And wait. And then bring the knees back to center, place the hands on the front of the thighs, and you want to straighten the elbows on out, but don't lock them out. So your fingertips might go over your knees, depends on the size of your arms. Let's do a little tuck and tilt here. Take a breath on in, exhale, gently press the thighs into the hands and tuck your pelvis. So you're keeping the pressure of the thighs and the hands constant. Take a sip of air in, and on the exhalation, you're going to go untuck your pelvis. You're going to land the pelvis heavy back on top of the roller, keeping the pressure of the thighs and the hands. Let's do that again. Breath on in, exhale, press the thighs and the hands as you tuck your pelvis. And then you're going to keep that pressure of the thighs and the hands as you take a sip of air in. On the exhalation, you're going to untuck your pelvis. Let's stay here in the tilt. Take a breath on in. On the exhalation, let's decompress. You're going to press the thighs a little bit more. Breathe the ribs heavy onto the mat. Pelvis gets heavy on top of the roller. Ease back your intention for one more breath. Pressing the thighs on the hands, sinking the ribs, pelvis heavy. You're gonna find some traction in that lumbar spine. Beautiful. Release that, excuse me, send the right foot down to the floor. And I want you to make sure that you have a nice square hip. You want to have the outside knee in toward the midline. Interlace your fingers around your shin or behind your thigh. Take a breath on in. On the exhalation, tuck that pelvis. Feel that line of pull on the front of the right thigh. Think about the right knee reaching over the right toes as you then draw the left knee in towards you. Ease back your intention. One more breath. Also thinking about that left butt cheek energizing toward the right heel. Release that, do the other side. Right knee on into the chest. You want to interlace around the shin or behind the thigh. Make sure that left knee is in toward the midline. Breath on in as you exhale and tuck that pelvis, and then draw the right knee in towards you. Think about the right butt cheek energizing toward the left heel. Feeling that line of pull in the front of the left thigh. Knee reaching over the toes. Ease back your intention. One more breath. Beautiful. Release your hands. Release your hands and relax your pelvis. I want you to flex your right foot. I want you to kick it low and long in front of you, making sure you're not hyperextending that knee. But I now want you to remember that pelvis being heavy on top of the roller as you reach the heel away from you and start to bring it up toward the ceiling, pausing before the knee bends or the leg wants to go past the ceiling. Once you're there, really think heel is reaching toward the ceiling. And I want you to go ahead and sink that pelvis on top of the roller, so much so that the left foot could get light. You could lift it on up. One more breath. Exhale. Sink the ribs as you sink the pelvis and reach the heel, and let that go. Let's do the other side. Lift that left knee on up. You're going to flex that left foot. You're going to kick it low and long, not out, and you do not want to hyperextend that knee. Think about right now the pelvis getting heavy on top of the roller so that the right foot is light. That's when you know you're in the right spot. Reaching that heel away from you, you're going to bring it on up toward the ceiling before the knee bends or the foot goes past the ceiling. Really reaching that heel without hyperextending the knee. Take a breath on in. On the exhalation, sink that pelvis heavy into the roller. Sink it in there. And you really want to think about reaching that heel. Sink the ribs. One more breath. Beautiful. Let that go. Get the roller out from underneath your pelvis. Let's get into our last rest assess. That was a hell of a map, people. We did miss some moves that I had on there, but I knew I was overtraining. But remember where you were when we started. Notice your shoulder girdle now. Notice your arm position, right? We did a lot of work here. So you might notice now I'm super heavy weighted below my shoulder blades, and I'm on the backs of my knuckles, which I love. I'm going to turn my head from left to right. So notice if now, even after doing the neck release, if now it feels even more released from releasing the low back, because it's all connected, right? Cruise on down to your lumbar curve. Notice if you have a nice little pop in that lumbar curve. I know I do. My butt cheeks are nice and heavy, weighted on top of on the mat here. Notice if you get a sense of that gluteal fold where the pelvis meets the leg. Notice if you feel a little bit of a space there, and notice the backs of thighs if those have come down to the floor. Notice if you feel evenly weighted on the outer 1/3 portion of the heels so that you have that nice little V formation in the feet. And then tune into your autopilot, noticing if you feel more even from left to right, as opposed to more heavily weighted on one side versus the other. Take a nice breath into your body. Ooh, yeah, I got more rib expansion there. And then give yourself a hug for showing up today and doing this really hard class. And then bend your knees and roll to your side. Come on up to sit and get some water. If you want to, go ahead and unmute yourselves. We have a couple of minutes so we can talk. I wanted to see how that went for all you guys. Patricia, you made it. How'd that go?
Yeah, what time did this class start in your
11.
world?
11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Well, no wonder. It would be 3 hours before that. So that's why I was late.
Yeah, no, I sent out like 1,000 reminders. I was trying to avoid exactly the confusion that you had today. Oh well, I should have done it one more time.
That's
Yeah,
all right.
I have to jump on a call with Sue and Carrie in 20 minutes, so that's why I wanted to do this early. But anyway, how'd that go for you guys? We did a lot of stuff. So Maricela, how'd that go for you?
Hi, Amanda. It was fine. I really felt the difference when we did hip hero from a releve before and after, because I had some foot troubles and pelvic floor troubles and issues, and then I really feel I really feel that my feet are really a little bit more stable and I can do the releve better.
I love that.
And I don't with the hip standing, I feel my inner legs inner tight, but not in a nice way. Do you
Not
know?
in a nice way. Yeah, I would have to see where your positioning is. You might have, I mean, the thing that's tough about side hip hero is that, you know, you have to really look at someone. That's why doing these, like the Red Mountain thing is going to be great, because we'll really be able to see how people are standing with that. Because sometimes you might even have a little bit of an internal rotation in the inner leg or the lower leg. And if that's happening, it's going to put some strain on that inner thigh. So that might be the case for you, in which case I would say, hold off on that move for a bit and do moves like side leg lift, monster side step. Mm-hmm. What level training are you currently?
I did level 3.
Oh, you do? Okay, perfect. All right, great. Thanks, Christina. How'd that go for you? I hope it was good. She left. Okay. Okay, cool. So that's just an interesting thing to play with. It's a really hard move, side hip hero. It took me years to be able to do that one right.
I couldn't get through the end of it. I stood in both legs and I did the rotation, but I mean, my leg was so quivering there. I can really tell the asymmetry in my hips.
Yeah, it's a truth teller, that's for sure. And that's a great move to do the 2 for 1.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So do your weak hip first, and then try it that way. That's why I like doing that one, because I really my right hip is weaker. So for me, that's a real helpful one. But I just love that you got that that releve to come back on. Did you get that one too, Tony? Did you find that your releve was better after that?
Definitely.
Yeah. And of course, how about the hip hinge? How did that go for you guys? I mean, did you notice any changes in that each time?
Huge differences.
Yeah. It's incredible, right? Like we take all this stuff for granted. It's not just like this whole thing about stretching and flexibility is a load of crap. You know, it's not about that. It's about stability, right? And getting good fascial tone. So I love that. How about plie squat? Did that?
Yeah, Amanda, I have a question.
Of course.
Why do you cue tailbone floating in a plie? Because I really have tendency to go in arch my lower back, then I don't want to listen for myself, because
Yes.
then I lose, really, I lose the pelvic position.
Okay. So here's the thing. It's not a ballet plie where you tuck the pelvis. No,
No, but
no. Right?
But it,
So right. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying go crazy, right, with a super tilt. I'm saying it's just a slight float. Because the temptation for people is they go into this and they just kind of collapse and their knees buckle in, right?
Which is
So
what I have a tendency to do. So floating is perfect for me.
yeah, so you have to keep in mind the other thing is that where your pelvis is supposed to sit, right? So a lot of people think that this is the proper position for your pelvis, right? But it's not. This is a pathology. This is a sway back. This is not good. This is where your pelvis is supposed to be. That's a floated tailbone. So I'm literally asking you to put your pelvis where it's supposed to be.
yes, but then it's a comfortable position, neutral position.
Again, if it's something that is not working for you, it just may not, those standing moves may not be for you right now. Those are challenging moves. That's, I think, plie squats level 4 now. I can't keep track. I learned it back when you did everything in 4 days. So, so for you, I would say stick with inner thigh lift. That's another way to get into that pathway. Knee knockers, that's also level 4. That's a fabulous one to do. And if you're not ready for knee knockers, you could do mini bridge with a roller in between your knees, a performance roller, and it just
I've
will give
done
that
it.
little bit of, yeah, it's fantastic. It's a
I've done
great
it.
way to get the inner thigh to fire. So to me, it sounds like you've got some issues with that inner thigh. Have you had an injury in your groin?
No, I don't have the
Okay.
injury for the pelvic standing with the hiking up and down. Then I feel my inner leg, but I think it's normal to feel because the pelvis is going to be like this hiking, and then
Yeah.
you feel. I think it's not a big issue.
Yeah, you've got some compensation going on if you're feeling that when we're doing that on the inner thigh. Have you had a baby? Have you had a child? Have you given birth?
Yes,
Okay. So
long ago. Yes.
yeah, but it's the gift that keeps on giving. So
Yes.
it could be that you have a slight deviation in your pubic symphysis. I have a feeling that might be what your story is. So that all that inner thigh stuff is really going to be the key for you. So I would probably err on the side of more inner thigh lift than you normally would do, just to see how that goes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then go back and try it again. So, or maybe do inner thigh glide and shear and try side hip hero and see if you still have the same issue.
Yes.
Something to play with. Yeah, something to play with. Standing arm fans, we do okay with that one? Okay, good. How about clams, sideline backhand?
That was great. I really got it in the deltoid.
Okay, those cues work for you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's.
I hope I can learn to give those as well. It's a lot of information.
It is a lot, but the 3 things are key: the angle of the arm, the slight reach of the knuckles, and then thinking about the pinky leading the motion without twisting the arm.
Totally. It's the pinky. Totally made a difference for me on one of my hands. The other hand just sort of went there.
Again, 2 for 1.
Right.
2 for 1.
Right.
Awesome. Yay. Okay, so my dreams of doing inner thigh, back of thigh, calf, SI joint shear, tuck and tilt, decompress, core challenge went out the window. But we did get some other stuff in. I had a feeling I like put too much on my plate here, but that's okay. The point is, I hope you all feel good.
It was awesome. I loved it.
Yay, yay, yay. All right. Go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say it was a great way to start my day because it's early where I am.
Good. Patricia, how'd you do? You did okay? Did okay today?
Yeah, for what I got of the class.
Well, you'll get the recording, and if you want to come back on Saturday, by all means. We're going back to the normal time.
I'll see if I can, on Saturday we are?
Yeah, this Saturday.
Okay.
So now we're going back to the regular 12 to 1:30 time. And it's Wednesdays and Saturdays. And the reason why I'm doing that, usually I do Thursdays and Saturdays. And the reason why I'm doing Wednesdays is that I'm assisting level 3, and that takes up my Thursdays. So It's very confusing to me as well. The fact that I've managed to not forget my own schedule is a miracle. Knock on wood. All right, kids, I got to jam because I got to hop on a call, and I
How's
will
your
see you all
finger?
soon. Oh, it's getting there. Check it out. Can you guys see? I call it my Franken finger. It's getting there. It's really,
I've done that type of thing before,
Ugh.
especially when you lose it's numb.
yes,
it's-
it's totally numb right now.
Yeah, it's terrible. Feels
It's
awful.
getting there. It looks so gross the way it's healing. So it's like some pretty gnarly scar tissue, but it's not infected, but I don't like the way it looks as it's healing. I hope it's okay, but I have a feeling it's just gonna be an ugly looking finger. But I don't really care as long as it works. That's all
Did you
that
get
matters.
internal stitches
Okay.
as well as
No.
superficial stitches? Just
Bye.
Nope, just
One-
superficial, 7 superficial stitches.
Wow.
Yeah. And when they got taken out, it was pretty creepy. I've never done anything that severe. The last time I had stitches, I was like 12 when I fell at a swim meet on the deck and split my knee open. And I was so dramatic. I was like, why me? Why? I was a very dramatic child. I'm sure that shocks you.
It totally
Why?
shocks.
Why? As if I just got a diagnosis of like stage 4 metastatic cancer. I'm like, why? You know, it's like you got some stitches, kid. Buck up. My sister was there. She was like, oh, Amanda, calm down. I'm like, okay. But I was that kid where if I saw blood, I just couldn't. I was like, that's it. I'm dying. I'm dying. I really thought I was dying. I was going to bleed out and die. Yeah. 12-year-old brain. All right, my ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was
And,
fabulous.
yay. I'm so glad. And I'll talk
Yeah.
to you all soon.
Okay. Take
bye,
care.
Bye bye.